So if you didn't already know, I mean it's hard to miss now because I've noticed my face is everywhere in this building. I have a blog. It's called Media Marmalade. I actually started it in October 2011, so I've actually been blogging for nearly 3 years now. I started it after going to an Aussie haircare party with a friend of mine who told me that she'd entered a competition in a magazine. And when I got there, she was like, actually, I've got a beauty blog, and I thought I want to come along. I thought I'd be interested. So I went along with her, and actually I found it amazing how it was full of so many like-minded people. Everyone there was into the same thing. Everyone wanted to talk about clothes, which I had quite a passion for. And when I got home, she was like, you really should start your own blog, seeing that you spend so much money on clothes, you could really do it documenting it online rather than boring us with all the stories. And I was quite intrigued by the idea and thought, yeah, maybe I will. So the next day I did, I signed up to Blogger, which is what my blog is hosted on, and I started my blog. It's called Marmalade or Media Marmalade because, first of all, I'm trying to think of something that was a bit more unique than fashion or fashion here or fashion cover, whatever. And my grandpa used to call me Marmalade when I was a kid, so I'm not really sure why. I think it might have been to a flavour marmalade, which I still don't know why. But anyway, it had sort of a bit of sentiment to it, and I thought it would be a really nice sort of name for my blog. Sadly, Marmalade was taken by a zillion other blogs, so I went with Media Marmalade. Sort of, it combined obviously my career in media, but also the word Marmalade, and it also played on the alliteration of my name, so so I set it up on Blogger. It started out as a pretty rubbish blog layout, but over the course of, I suppose, 3 years, I've really learned how to code my blog and I designed and developed it myself. So how it is now is I guess a work in progress. I'm continually evolving it and developing it into, I guess, however I want it to be as I grow as well. 3 years ago I was quite a different person to who I am now. So yeah, whilst my blog's hosted on Blogger, I also feed my content across a number of other sites. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a network called Blog Loving, which many bloggers are sort of fed into, and it's an aggregator of content of what bloggers produce, as well as things like Pinterest as well. There's also a number of, I guess, style websites that you can load your content onto, so I've been featured across those as well throughout my time. And then I guess the final piece to the setup was obviously the photography element. And when I started my blog, I probably didn't really know anything about photography, but actually it really stemmed what is now probably the biggest love of my blog that I have. My kit at the moment is a Canon 5D Mark III, which I don't know if any of you know photography, but it's one of the sort of more professional lenses of the Canon suite. And I work with a couple of lenses, a 50mm 1.4 and 85mm 1.8, and basically those lenses are designed to maximise aperture, which is I guess the amount of light that a camera can let in. And what they're really great for is depth of field, so not that you can see in this picture, but as we go on you might notice, often a lot of my photography, the subject is in focus, but the background's quite blurred, and that's what those lenses really specialise in. A lot of blogs and bloggers use them because it creates like a bokeh effect, which people really like. So yeah, as I mentioned, I think the first reason I started was my blog was because I shop a lot. Anyone that works in my team will know that. I have sort of an uncontrollable shopping habit. I'm fine to admit it, I've come to terms with it. Equally, photography, as I mentioned, it wasn't something that I was really passionate about when I started my blog, but now it's probably the biggest thing I love about it. Writing as well. As a kid, I really liked writing stories or writing, books or pretending that I owned a magazine. And so actually the writing element of my blog is something I really enjoy. It's a nice outlet for that, seeing as aside from storytelling and documents you write here, you don't get to do much writing. And I'm quite an ambitious person and a career sort of focused person, and actually owning my own project and having something that felt like my own business was obviously really appealing, and something that's really kept me motivated throughout. So 3 years on, I've blogged consecutively for 1,125 days, which I have to work out. I've written over 1,139 blog posts. I think when I first started I was quite keen and I over-published a little bit in my first few weeks. View-wise, I mean I'm no Noella or Tanya Bird, that's for certain, but view-wise I've got over around 1.5 million views at the moment, so I'm quite proud of how that's grown. At the moment I'm getting roughly 80,000 views a month, but it's one of those continually growing processes. And I have around 22,000 subscribers to my content across a number of different platforms, so either Blogger, Google+, or Facebook, for example, which is where my content seems out to. So yeah, so that's where I am today. I predominantly write about 3 things. I'm not sure if any of you have checked out my blog yet, but you might have noticed that actually it's largely personal style. I'm by no means any knowledgeable on fashion or anything. It's more a documentation of what I wear and how I wear it. which seems to work well from the blogger's point of view because it's more, I guess, real people wearing real clothes as opposed to sort of catwalk, which a lot of people don't have that much interest in. I write quite a lot from a lifestyle point of view now. One of the topics that I'll come on to a bit that I've recently started writing more about is in the how-to series. So one of the biggest questions I get asked, which again I'll come on to, is how on earth do you blog and work? So sort of from that question I thought actually it'd be really useful if I started to write about how I manage that process, how I juggle both, my tips for organisation, and actually they've been, despite the fact that my blog is probably staff focused, they've been my most successful features that I've had yet. I'm quite lucky that one of the features I wrote is actually going to be featured in a new blogging magazine that's coming out, I think it's next month, so that's quite cool. And then I write about general stuff that's going on in my life. My blog is less of a diary, but there's certain elements of that within it. And the final piece is beauty, and again I'm definitely not into beauty as much as some people are, but still it's just sharing my experiences of products I've used or my routines that others seem to be interested as well. So yeah, my biggest ever question I always get asked is how do you actually write your blog and work at the same time? Because obviously both are quite demanding, and everyone here that works in media knows that our job is no 9 to 5. And equally a blog is no 1 hour a day. So I've got a little process that I work on a weekly basis, and I would say that I try and plan everything a week ahead of the week coming, so that if anything happens, I'm hungover, we've got a pitch, or whatever happens, I've got content live, so I almost don't have to worry about the upcoming days. So yeah, it falls into sort of 3 areas: ideas and pre-planning, and I'll go into more in detail. The taking the pictures, which is probably the most time-consuming element of it, and then of course writing and getting my features scheduled. So first of all, generating ideas. This is something that actually I have continually, so I always carry a notepad with me, because the worst thing to do is have a really great idea and then like 2 hours later you've forgotten it. So on my commute I usually just sit and scribble notes or use the notes on my phone to come up with ideas for what I might have on my blog in the coming weeks, or even content ideas or collaboration ideas that I've got. And then I'll also make a list of the features for the week ahead, so I might say Monday I'm going to post this, Tuesday I'm going to post that. I'm quite an organised person, so actually having it all written down is like another stress off my mind, knowing that it's sort of on paper. The second part of the process is obviously taking the pictures, and as I mentioned, this is the most time-consuming element. I tend to try and rope in my sisters. I've got a bit of a barter mechanism with them, so if they take pictures I'll give them a bag of clothes and it works quite well. But my sisters actually live in Winchester, which is where I'm from, so that's only happening every now and then. Other times I'll try and rope in my boyfriend, who is less up for barter negotiation. Usually that ends in arguments, that's I avoid that if possible. And the third option is obviously a tripod and remote, and that's really how I started my blog. So in the first year everything was in a tripod and remote, and I still try and use it now if I can, but actually it's much better if you've got a human doing the functionality. And I always shoot on manual because it brings up the best photography. So even when my sisters are doing it, I'll set up the camera for them and just sort of say, sit down there, move over there, get that shot. So yeah, that's the process. It's my sister. So the third step is obviously writing the features and scheduling. This for me is the quickest and easiest bit. I'll literally just sit for an hour in the evening or half an hour in the evening and write out a post and schedule it for the next day. Or if I can, which is an ideal scenario but rarely happens, try and write an entire week's post in one weekend so that for that whole week I don't have to worry. But actually usually what it comes down to is the night before I write the feature and schedule it for live. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, it's like rambling on. The final element, and obviously for a blogger or a blogger, I don't do blogging, but for bloggers as well, one of the most important things is social sharing. So the social space of blogging is always on, so it's quite difficult working full time and juggling that, but I tend to, if I'm running to a meeting, I'll go on Instagram or Twitter, or if I'm commuting to and from work, I'll use my social channels there. But all the content that goes onto my blog is also then fed out across all my other social channels. So it's not just a case of scheduling a feature on my blog, I then have to put that across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But it's a great platform to actually engage with the community as well, because I'm not sure if any of you know, but there's actually quite a big blogging community, and it's all very supportive, and lots of people talk to each other on a daily basis. So as much as I can, I do try and stay on social channels and engage in those conversations. Clearly, I'm sure, as many of you have heard or suspect, there are some perks to blogging, and actually, if I'm honest, it's one of the things that's kept me motivated. Whilst I didn't at all start this or even know that, working with brands would be something that blogging was to become, because as many bloggers thought when they started their blog, it was quite an insular little diary online. It was never really intended for mass eye or for collaborations, but yes, one of the perks of the blogs is that we get to work with brands now. And on a weekly basis, I do have quite a few deliveries, which I get to send to my dad's house, who lives around the corner, so he's officially like my concierge right now. That was a delivery I had last week when I got back from holiday, so I came back to a bit of an early Christmas. But yeah, so whilst I didn't start my blog to work with brands, actually I do work with brands quite regularly, and I tend to work with them in 4 different ways. So first of all is collaboration. This is probably, I would say, one of my favourite and best ways to work with brands, and it really involves sort of a mutually beneficial relationship, whereby we might work on a long-term project, which includes for example, I might get sent clothes from them or get started with outfits, and in return they use my content across their social channels, and it might be a 2-way long-term relationship. I also take part in a thing called Take 10, which includes 10 of the UK's biggest fashion bloggers, and each month we work with different brands, styling items from their collection, and the idea is that it's bloggers showcasing it in their own personal style, and that's a really nice thing I do on a regular basis. Sponsored posts, when I first started blogging, these were huge. This is basically a brand saying, gee, we want you to write about X, we'll pay you a grand to write it. Definitely wasn't a grand myself. It's actually really something the industry is moving away from for 2 reasons. First of all, many bloggers, and myself included, really sort of pride themselves on their editorial integrity, and having a brand saying to you, we want you to write X, Y, Z, that's not in your tone of voice, you don't really want to see that content on your blog. Nowadays, a blog's a brand in its own right, really. And second of all, brands want more than that now. They don't just want you to write a scripted feature on your blog. They want you to really endorse their products and become part of their brand. So I'd say that's something that the industry is moving away from now, but it is something that I've previously done. Affiliate links and advertising. I think most bloggers with sort of scale nowadays work with affiliate providers. So I work with Skimlinks, Affiliate Window, and also Reward Style, which is my preferred partner. So effectively they represent a lot of fashion and beauty brands, and what you can do at the end of your post is when you list, I'm wearing X, Y, Z, you can affiliate link and get commission, but as well as that you can also put imagery links at the bottom. So this is a really great way for bloggers and bloggers to commercialise their content without sort of losing the editorial integrity that a lot of us want to make sure we maintain. And the final point is product reviews, and this happens on a really regular basis, and it's sort of a step down from collaborations, and this might just be, Reese coming to you and say, look, we've got a new collection out of autumn, we'd love you to pick something and start up on your blog. So it comes with a lot, generally they're not paid for, it's just here's a couple of gifts for you to try. And I do quite a lot of these sort of features, because where I don't blog full time, I don't really have the time to make it into a massive commercial entity. So things like this are a really good way for me just to keep on the sort of brand cycle, but also be able to manage my time quite efficiently. And over the course of the last 3 years, I have had the opportunity to work with some of my absolute favourite brands. So French Connection, Jimmy Choo, John Lewis, Harvey Nichols. There's some brands that I've got to work with recently, which I'm quite proud of, really. And also be featured in some, popular press, Stylist Company, Look Magazine. Sometimes I find my face in those, which is quite funny. One of the funniest things I've actually seen is kind of like people who are briefing, say, IPC Media for a partnership or a collaboration opportunity, and then getting a response back and seeing myself in it. So that's happened a couple of times. But yeah, so there's a couple of partnerships that I'm really proud of. But as I mentioned, and I know this isn't about work, but I thought it would be rude not to even mention the industry itself, but the blogging industry now is a £1 billion industry. There's so many bloggers and bloggers making millions of pounds from their content, but equally tons of brands that want to get involved with it and actually, start using them as touch points to reach their core audiences, particularly if you've got, I suppose, a younger female audience, which is really where it's strong at the moment. And I mentioned it before, but what I wanted to say is, I guess, as a heads up, is that the industry is changing, and that bloggers don't really want to just receive a brief that's asking for a lot from them and nothing in return. It's actually quite a mutually beneficial relationship now, and the best collaborations really are mutually beneficial. And I put this John Lewis image up as an example of a collaboration I did earlier this year with John Lewis, who are launching their new campaign, The Edit. And it was a fully through-the-line campaign, so TV, digital, I think they might have had out of home and press as well. And they had a model who featured in all of the TV and press stuff. But online they really wanted to collaborate with bloggers to not only sort of tap into those audiences, but also make the brand a bit more real and the collection a bit more tangible. So myself and 3 other bloggers were invited along to a warehouse in Shoreditch one evening to effectively be part of the shoot for them. It was really cool actually because we got to style up our own look. So it wasn't someone saying to me, can you wear this outfit? It was that here's our collection, please go and pick a range of things and create a few looks and we'll shoot it for you. Most nerve-wracking thing ever because it's very different from being behind your tripod or you're sitting with a camera to being behind a photographer with an actual proper camera and whole studio lighting. But it was a really amazing experience, and obviously the content produced from that formed their digital strategy for the next, I think it was 3 to 4 months. But equally, in return, I got all the clothes I'd styled. So I think it was around £600 or £700, like recent Muslims clothes, which was really up my street. And also, of course, all the imagery they took from the academic on my blog. That was great publicity as well for my blog. So in a way, it's a really great example of a collaboration and a partnership that's actually mutually beneficial. I won't go into this in tons of detail, but the ways that we, as brand advocates and communications planners, that we can work with bloggers, there's so many opportunities and there's so many different objectives or areas that blogs and bloggers can help brands with, whether it's content production, endorsement, or just pure scale and reach. I'm by no means an expert, but I do have quite a vested interest in it, obviously. So if anyone did ever want to come and chat or get advice or hear about any other collaborations that I've done, I'd be more than happy to sit and chat with people and sort of share some of my views on the point. And yeah, whistle stop tour, but there you go. Really fast.
Any questions? How did you grow your followers from the early lives?
Really organically. I'm very, very much against the whole buying followers mechanism, which I think nowadays is the fast track way to becoming a big blogger. I think I actually started at the right time. I think people that you might have heard of, like Zoella, Tanya Burr, Viviana Does Makeup, they started around 2009. So by the time I started in 2011, they were already big bloggers, and in the last 2 to 3 years grown even further, so now they're huge. But yeah, it was really organically. It was things like joining conversations on Twitter, Instagram with other bloggers helps sort of build your brand and blog awareness, I guess. Yeah, I would say it's organically. There's not a proven way to do it. I don't know. Just great. But I think posting content regularly, as I said at the beginning, I've never missed a day. I blog every single day at 10 AM.
Is that sort of a recommended time?
No, I'm quite obsessive, and that's just when I started doing it. And now I missed that time, I've done something wrong. But no, I think you find a lot of bloggers post around 7, 8 PM, so that's probably when people get home from work and they're reading content. But I don't know why, I just found 10 AM and now I've got a bit set in stone on it.
Do you find it difficult to strike a balance between growing the success and following of your blog, but also maintaining integrity of your posts, and how do you find it?
Yeah, I think that's a really big challenge for the industry, as in the blogging industry as a whole right now. I think because I work full time and this isn't my business, I don't rely on commercial stuff on this. For me, I do it because I love to write, I love to take pictures, and I love to share the content with people that are actually interested and genuinely engage with it when I put it up there. But I think for those bloggers that are doing this full time, there's a real pressure to make money, and there is a risk that you really genuinely damage your content and your editorial integrity. And actually, in the end, I think followers will start to think, do you know what, I don't know if this is paid for or not. Do you genuinely believe in this brand, this product? And it's a real balance that I think people are still now trying to find. I don't know if anyone saw in the news this week, but Oreo just done a campaign, and I think they sent products to a number of bloggers and asked them to talk about it in their videos. But what they didn't ask for is clarification that it was a sponsored post. So those bloggers are being paid to do it, but didn't, of course, write that this is a paid for piece of content. And so it's raised alarm to the ASA now. So there's a real balance that's going to need to be struck, but it is really failure now, I think.
You mentioned kind of blogging earlier. Is blogging ever something you consider? Because obviously, like Zoella and a lot of the big ones do.
If Sophie never wants to ever be my PA, she'll have me on a video. I don't think so.
No.
And I think the reason is because actually my career is the most important thing for me, and I worry about the credibility of creating blogs about my daily life or cheesy shit when I film about lipstick. I know blogging is one thing, but I think blogging is another level, and for me it's just not something I personally feel very interested in. But I would say if anyone wants to look to start a blog or blog for commercial reasons, blogging is where the money's at. A lot of traditional bloggers are now moving on to YouTube because the amount of money that's there to be made is just huge.
Are there any other content areas that you would like to do or kind of explore more? Because I agree with the blogging point, but the you know, you've only got to go to YouTube to realise that actually they're few and far between. They try and peddle the same 5 or 6 bloggers for every single client in every campaign you propose. So I kind of get your point with blogging. So what are the other content areas that you'd like to kind of explore and look at?
For me, it would be journalism. So I didn't study English at school or anything, or go to university to study it, but I've always had quite an interest in writing, and I would love, I think if this was to become my full-time career at any point, I think to make money and to have a regular income, I would want to get into some sort of freelance writing for magazines or for online content providers. So almost expanding beyond my own content and starting to write for other people. And then I always have a bit of pipe dream now with photography. I mean, I don't think there's really that much money to be made in it, but I love my camera, I love using it and taking pictures and capturing moments. So actually, anything on the side that to do with that would be an area that I'd be interested in exploring.
Do you always get brands approaching you? Is that how? Is that just one day you were like, oh, somebody?
Yeah, and it's really evolved actually. When I first started my blog, it tended to be much smaller brands. So, you know, the online providers like Misguided or Boohoo and things, which come at a much sort of lower cost premium. Whereas now I tend to work with more premium brands, which are much more in keeping with my own sort of personal style and taste. I know a lot of bloggers that do email brands themselves. I just have a bit of a pride thing and I don't do it. I mean, I probably should, because there's brands that I'd love to work with, and I'm sure if I just email them to say, look, I really love your brand, and actually I write a blog and here's some content I've already written about you, then maybe they might be interested in exploring things further. But also the time management thing, I don't really have the time now to sort of sit and actually pursue PRs or pursue brands to actually write to them and engage with them. So at the moment, yeah, brands come to me, but if I was to do this full time, I'd probably have to actually start developing a bit of a class actually.
How did you choose the platform on which you write your blog, or the technical side?
It was actually a lack of knowledge. I just didn't know any other opportunities, I didn't know any other sites there were. So now obviously there's WordPress and Blogger. And I sort of knew a bit about WordPress, but Blogger was just such a simple and easy platform to use. And I'm almost so comfortable with it now, I almost just think, is there any point in me moving away from it? Because if you were to look at a typical Blogger blog, they look exactly the same. But because I've customised my layout so much now, I don't think anyone that would go to my blog would think, oh, that's part of the Blogger platform. But yeah, it was lack of knowledge. I didn't know what else there was. So I'm happy to still be with them.